The rain had stopped just moments before he stepped out of the glass doors, but the city still felt soaked in disappointment. His shoes paused on the marble steps as if his body hadn't yet accepted what his mind already knew. The interview was over. The chance was gone. Another door had closed, quietly but firmly, the way they always seemed to for men like him. He straightened his jacket, worn thin at the elbows, and took a breath that felt heavier than it should have. Inside that building, decisions were being made that would never include him, and as he walked away, he had no idea that just minutes later, the same CEO who dismissed him would do something that would change everything. Before we go any further, if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the idea that one moment can change an entire life, take a second to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps stories like this alive. He was a single father named Daniel, though no one inside the building had bothered to remember his name. To them, he was just another applicant in a long line of applicants, another resume with gaps that raised quiet eyebrows. Those gaps were years spent raising a daughter alone after grief rewrote his life without permission. He had ironed his shirt at dawn while his daughter slept on the couch beside him, her backpack ready for school, her lunch carefully packed with the last of the groceries. He had practiced answers in his head while tying her shoelaces, promising her with a tired smile that this interview might finally be the one that changed things. She had nodded, believing him the way only children still can. The office he had just left was everything he imagined success to look like. Tall windows, polished floors, walls lined with awards that reflected light like silent witnesses to power. The interview itself had been brief, polite, and painfully hollow. He had spoken about his skills, his experience, his willingness to work harder than anyone else in the room, but he could feel the distance growing with every sentence. The CEO, a woman known for her sharp instincts and sharper standards, had listened with a neutral expression that never softened. When it ended, she thanked him for his time. Nothing more. No encouragement. No promise. Just a professional ending that felt like a quiet verdict. As Daniel walked down the street, the city noise swallowed him whole. Car horns, footsteps, distant sirens, all blending into a blur that matched his thoughts. He replayed every answer in his mind, wondering what he could have said differently, what invisible rule he had broken. He thought about rent due in 2 weeks, about the electricity bill folded neatly in his pocket, about the way his daughter pretended not to worry when she asked if everything would be okay. He kept walking because stopping felt dangerous, like if he stood still, the weight of it all might finally crush him. What Daniel didn't know was that inside the building he had just left, something unexpected was unfolding. The CEO sat alone in the interview room, staring at the resume she had set aside. She had already moved on to the next candidate on paper, already convinced herself that Daniel wasn't the right fit. On the surface, it was a logical decision. He didn't have the recent corporate experience others did. His career path wasn't smooth or impressive. But something about the way he carried himself had lingered in her thoughts, like a question she hadn't meant to ask. She stood and walked to the window, watching the street below. From that height, people looked small, like pieces on a board she controlled with decisions made behind closed doors. That was when she noticed him. Daniel was standing at the corner, rainwater dripping from the edge of his jacket, his shoulders slightly hunched not from the cold but from the quiet defeat she had seen too many times before. There was nothing dramatic about it. No outburst. Just a man absorbing another loss in silence. And for reasons she couldn't immediately explain, it unsettled her. Her mind went back years, to a time before the titles and the corner office, when she herself had walked away from an interview convinced she wasn't enough. She remembered the feeling of being measured by numbers that never told the whole story. She had built her success on resilience, on someone once taking a chance on her when logic said otherwise. Standing there, watching Daniel blend into the crowd, she felt an unfamiliar pull, as if ignoring it would be a betrayal of everything she claimed to value. Daniel, meanwhile, reached the bus stop and sat down, staring at the cracked pavement between his shoes. He considered checking his phone but already knew there would be no new messages, no sudden miracles. His thoughts drifted to his daughter again, to how he would explain this failure without letting it sound like the end. He rehearsed a hopeful tone, even as his chest tightened. He told himself that he had survived worse, that he would keep going because that was what fathers did. Still, the disappointment burned, raw and relentless. Then his phone vibrated in his hand, startling him. An unknown number lit up the screen. For a moment, he considered ignoring it, assuming it was spam or another reminder he didn't need. Something made him answer anyway, his voice steady despite everything. The call was brief, almost unreal. He was asked if he could return to the office immediately. No explanation was given, just urgency. Confusion mixed with cautious hope as he stood and turned back toward the building. Each step felt heavier than the last, as if his heart was afraid to believe what his feet were doing. When he re-entered the lobby, the same receptionist who had barely looked at him earlier now greeted him with a different expression, alert and attentive. He was escorted upstairs, past offices that seemed to watch him differently this time. The CEO met him not in the interview room, but in her office. The space was warm despite its size, filled with personal touches that hinted at a life beyond spreadsheets and strategies. She invited him to sit, and for the first time, she really looked at him, not as a candidate but as a person. She explained that she had reconsidered. That something about his story, his resilience, his quiet determination, had stayed with her. She admitted that she had been too focused on perfect resumes and not enough on real character. What followed wasn't a dramatic speech or an instant job offer wrapped in theatrics. It was an honest conversation about struggle, responsibility, and potential. She spoke about the company needing people who understood perseverance, who valued work not just as a ladder but as a lifeline. By the time she finished, Daniel felt something shift inside him, a tension he had carried for years beginning to loosen. When she offered him the position, it wasn't just employment she was giving him. It was dignity. It was trust. It was a chance to rewrite the story he had been telling his daughter and himself. His hands trembled slightly as he accepted, not because he doubted himself, but because he finally felt seen. As he left the building for the second time that day, the city looked different. The same streets, the same noise, but everything felt lighter. He paused on the steps again, this time lifting his face to the sky, letting the cool air fill his lungs. He thought about calling his daughter, about hearing her excitement, about telling her that sometimes, walking away wasn't the end of the story. The days that followed were not magically easy. The job demanded long hours and constant learning. Daniel still packed lunches before sunrise and helped with homework late at night. But there was a new steadiness in his life, a rhythm that came from knowing his effort mattered. The CEO kept her word, mentoring him, challenging him, and reminding him that the company's success depended on people like him as much as spreadsheets and forecasts. Months later, during a company event, Daniel watched his daughter run across the office floor, laughing, her eyes bright with pride. The CEO stood nearby, smiling softly, aware that her single decision had rippled outward in ways no report could measure. Daniel understood then that success wasn't just about climbing higher, but about reaching back, about recognizing humanity in moments when it was easiest to ignore it. If this story has touched your heart, if it reminded you that hope can show up even after you've walked away, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe to the channel. Your engagement helps keep these stories of compassion and second chances alive. And before this video ends, I have a special request. Comment below with the word hope if you believe that one act of kindness can change a life. Because somewhere right now, someone is walking away from what they think is the end. And maybe, just maybe, a second chance is already on its way.